Folks, we have some absolutely breaking news. Game Freak has been hacked. A Giga leak is currently happening. We are getting so much information on old canceled SNES games, DS games, information on Legends EA, information on a Generation 10 of Pokemon. This is crazy. Apparently, a full terabyte of data has leaked. However, only 4 gigs of it have actually surfaced. So I'm going to make a video right now kind of letting you all know, like, hey, this is happening. We are going to see a lot of leaks for upcoming Pokemon games and old Pokemon games and old other games from Game Freak over the next couple of days, over the next coming weeks, because this reminds me of when Insomniac got hacked at the end of 2023, and we saw those builds of, like, Wolverine and even Spider-Man 3 and learned about all those games they're making in, like, 2030, right? I think it's on that scale. We have a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. I was just taking a nap, doing my thing, and apparently, like, Giga Leak 2.0 is happening. Game Freak has been hacked, and a ton of internal information has been leaking, including information on Legends EA and Generation 10, as well as some older stuff, which isn't, like, as exciting on, like, a news perspective, but also it's very exciting from, like, a historical perspective to see what's happening. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that while, yes, I could sit here and say it's exciting this is all happening, I'm not sure if there's any personal, like, employee information in this leak. Usually there is, so that is very unfortunate. Obviously, this all was, illegally obtained. It's all hacked information, so it's a really bad thing that it happened to the company, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm not interested in everything that we're seeing from these leaks. So I'm just going to read from this Nintendo Everything article here. They will kind of give us a little rundown, like a little tee us up here, so we can talk about this more in depth. Pokemon developer Game Freak hit with hack, internal info leaking. Game Freak, the main developer of Pokemon, appears to have been hit with a significant hack. As a result, source code for various games, behind-the-scenes information, and more has started to leak online. Thus far, we know the source code of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Black 2 and White 2 has surfaced. That is a huge deal. A few code games are also popping up, including Gaia, which is apparently what Generation 10 is going by internally. Speaking of which, the new gen is apparently being developed for Ounce, which supposedly confirms Switch 2's codename, because we had heard the codename of Switch 2 would be Ounce. Apparently, this leak kind of reaffirms that. And for those curious, Akaku is the codename for Pokemon Legends EA, so KHU, the Pokemon Riddler, was totally right about that. Another interesting codename is Synapse. This is the craziest thing so far. We're not quite sure what this is, but there are reports of it being an unreleased multiplayer battle title, with some describing it as a PvP or MMO game. ILCA, who worked on Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, is apparently involved with its project. So apparently we're getting a Pokemon MMO that may be kind of like a Pokemon Stadium thing, but there's more information on that in just a second. Today's Game Freak Pokemon hack is reminiscent of the Nintendo leak or Giga leak that started in 2018 and was also prominent in 2020. If you remember, that's where we saw a bunch of like Space World demos for Pokemon Gold and Silver, as well as just a ton of other stuff. I mean, there was a ton of information in that. As for today's Game Freak hack, the situation is very much developing. We'll keep you updated as we hear more. Now, there is an update at the end of this here that is very interesting. They say, updates, we have a few more tidbits. First, Synapse is now been described as a Splatoon-like game, but it's unclear what that means at present. Pokemon Legends EA is already finished, or at least a build of it, and seems to be a normal Switch game. Gen 10 is Switch 2 right now, with 2 versions, K and N, and while there's been some conflicting information, it appears that the game is at least being tested for the current Nintendo Switch as well. That is a lot. That is a lot of crazy information all being thrown around at once. There's so much information coming out right now. I did see someone say that apparently somewhere in this leak, Generation 10 is going to be set in Greece, which is crazy because I literally said in my video last Friday, I think, talking like, man, I would love if Generation 10 is set in Greece or something. And that sounds like that might be happening here. But let's take these. These are the main 3 things I want to talk about. First, Synapse has now been described as a Splatoon-like game. It is a MMO or PvP game developed by ILCA and Game Freak. Of course, ILCA made Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. That is huge. That is a huge deal. If it is actually a Pokemon MMO, that is something that fans have been, or at least we're asking for decades, really. That is very interesting. However, I will say my gut reaction to that is like kind of a, because I want to believe they will just make a nice, clean Pokemon MMO. However, I know how Pokemon Company is. I can totally see this being a mobile game. Maybe it's also on Switch and Switch 2 or something, but I can see this being a mobile game that has a ton of microtransactions, a free-to-play project, which is, not what I want ILCA to be doing. I mean, ILCA, we have some issues with their remake of Diamond and Pearl, right? Like, there's definitely some issues there. But ILCA's a very competent developer. They made Sandland and One Piece Odyssey, and those are great games. Or at the very least, they're good games. I think Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's issues come from the fact that they were probably rushed and rushed on development, especially during COVID, because that game came out in 2021. I think if they were given the time they need to make a mainline Pokemon game, be that Black and White remakes, frankly, even be that a new game with help from Game Freak, I think they could do it. But if they're getting put on an MMO or some sort of PvP kind of spin-off, that is disappointing to me, because I would like there to be another developer that can do remakes or something while Game Freak makes the new game. So that's very interesting news. There's no doubt about that. If they are actually making a MMO that apparently is being described as a Splatoon-like game, I don't really know what that could be. Maybe it's some sort of like, I'm thinking like Turf War specifically. Maybe it's 4v4 or something. Who knows? But that's crazy information there. Pokemon Legends EA is already finished, or at least a build of it, and seems to be a normal Switch game. So I've been saying this for a while now. While I could see there being maybe some sort of cross-gen version or some sort of cross-gen launch for ZA, I've been saying, like, yeah, it's probably just going to be a Switch 1 game. Metroid Prime 4, I'm much more like, okay, that's probably going to be cross-gen between both. But Legends EA, I do think, will be a normal Switch game. Game Freak is always very late to switch over to next gen, as we're seeing with apparently Switch 1 getting Generation 10. But Pokemon Legends EA already finished, or at least a build of it. That could really mean anything. If it's just a build of it, like, if it's just a build of it, I mean, how early is that build, right? Like, that could be still very far away. But also, if it looks like a complete build, right? Like, that could mean that game is releasing, like, early next year. Like, the game is basically just being sat on and hopefully polished up, right? Maybe that's what that means, right? Maybe the game is done, and they're just spending the next year trying to polish it and making sure Scarlet and Violet 2.0 doesn't happen. So that's huge, and yeah, apparently not coming to Switch 2. But then this final piece of information. Generation 10 is Switch 2 right now with the two versions K and N. No idea what the K and N could stand for. I'm sure people will have speculations on very soon. And while there's been some conflicting information, it appears that the game is at least being tested for the current Switch as well. Now here's what's crazy about that. Necro Felipe from Universal Nintendo said that Generation 10 will be for both systems. And then us Enter Leaks, of course, chiming in here, saying we can confirm that the leak includes mention of a Switch run version of Pokemon Gaia, which is the code name for Generation 10. That is unheard of. We have never gone a console generation that ends up getting 3 full generations of Pokemon. I'm not that surprised by that, but I guess at the same time I kind of am, because we don't have any release information so far in this leak, but my assumption is that Generation 10 is releasing holiday 2026 for the 30th anniversary, so another 2 full years from now. I also think the Switch 2 is probably coming out, sometime in 2025, even early 2025. If we get a full new generation of Pokemon starting on Switch 1 in 2026, that means we're going to be getting Pokemon games on Switch 1 until, good lord, 2028, 2029? So that's a little weird to me. Now, the wording's a little weird. People are saying they're testing it for Switch 1. Maybe it won't actually release there. But yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, it does make sense for them to keep releasing it on Switch, even if it runs worse, because I mean, Scarlet and Violet sold, like, what, 25 million copies? At the time, they were, like, the fastest-selling Pokemon game. So, with the install base the Switch has, with the rate software is still selling, it's not, like, that shocking to put Generation 10 on Switch. In fact, I've actually talked about that in the past. Like, maybe back when I was thinking Gen 10 would release in 2025, right? I was thinking, okay, well, they'll probably put Generation 10 on Switch. It'll be a short generation. And then 2027, we get Generation 11, we'll say, on Switch 2. But then, we kind of realized, like, okay, well, this is like 30th anniversary. They're probably going to wait for that. Pokemon Company loves their anniversaries and releasing and kind of tying things in with that. So I really don't think we're going to see it until late 2026. But maybe we'll see it next year. Maybe Legends EA is going to be an early 2025 game, or like first half of 2025 game. And then we get the next generation of Pokemon in holiday 2025. That does line up with everything that we've had in the past, or most of what we had in the past since Black and White, where that came out 2010, 3 years later X and Y, 3 years later Sun and Moon, 3 years later Sword and Shield, 3 years later Scarlet and Violet, 3 years later is holiday 2025 for Generation 10. I just thought maybe they would wait, and I guess they still might, but this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy information. We did get, like I said, the information that the Switch 2 codename is Ounce. We now know that for like 100% certainty. I believe that was that Midori who originally leaked that, I believe? So that's crazy. The source code and beta builds for Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Black 2 and White 2 leaking is a huge thing. I imagine we'll see a lot of like beta sprites and everything, maybe even some beta designs for Pokemon. That's going to be very interesting to see. There also is, I cannot show it in the video, trust me, but there is also leaked like full games. There is an SNES game that leaked, as well as a DS game called Present Party that looked pretty finalized. Like, it looked like it's like a Pokemon kind of style game, but your monsters are based on like toys and stuff, and they're kind of like fused versions of like toys. Like, I saw like a Gundam toy, which looked pretty cool, and like a teddy bear that like it was a monster or something like that. So very, very interesting stuff. We'll have to wait and see what else comes out of this. I wanted to make this video now before all of it, before the floodgates completely open, because I wanted to let you all know, if you are interested in this kind of stuff, I would say go to Family Boards, go on Twitter, look up Pokemon, look up Giga Leak. you're going to be seeing information coming out for a while, I imagine. It is possible Nintendo plugs this before it gets out of hand, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm personally expecting it to just not stop for the next 2 days, you know? But I will keep you updated on any major findings that we have in this Pokemon League. Of course, subscribe here for more videos like this, more Nintendo news, discussion, speculation, all that fun stuff. I posted a video this morning of a crazy theory I have for the Switch Online playtest. Probably not real, but like also it's just a fun theory that I had. So if you're interested, please go check out that. And until next time, folks, peace.